So I had already done this project a while ago, but I wanted to re-record this due to the events that happened in Orlando recently. Um, there's something that I've wanted to talk about for a while. I've wanted to do a video series on just the stuff that matters to me, but the subject matter I want to talk about today is violence, and we've just encountered this very sizable um, act of violence on our front doorstep. You know, some of us may live in fear. I don't think that's the way to go. But I think the important thing right now is that we understand violence. So in order to understand violence, I think we first have to define it. So to pose a question, what is violence? It's not that simple. Violence can be an act of harm, right? That's what most people would think, but it doesn't have to be physical harm. It can be emotional harm as well. And it doesn't have to actually have an effect. So you have a woman screaming at a man, and the man doesn't care that the woman's screaming at her. Is it still a violent act? Yeah. It has to have some sort of intent. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to say an act of violence is an act with the intent to harm in any way, shape, or form, whether it be physical, emotional, sexual, and yeah, that's the thing on its own. But so to understand everything, we have to center around this definition. Now, here's the important thing. When we're talking about someone that commits an act of violence, in our society, there's very little sympathy for that person. I, for one, grew up with a certain disability called poor impulse control, right? So I would want to do something and I would snap and I would do it. And most often that would be physically lashing out. And I mean lashing out. I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't like a kickboxer or anything. I would go flailing with my fist. Sure, it was pretty funny to watch from the outside, but it was a problem. I had a serious problem. And, it's really hard to think about these people who commit these atrocious acts of violence, especially with the thing in Orlando right now. He killed 50 people. I'm not saying feel sympathy for him, but understand that everybody's got their stuff going on. I mean, I don't know what this guy had going on. If he was a terrorist, if he was just a closet gay guy. I mean, we really don't know. We don't have a profile on him. So, you got to take into consideration that everybody has their problems. Violence is never the answer. Don't get me wrong. I'm still mourning all these people who died in Orlando, but you gotta. Sometimes you just gotta put yourself in someone else's shoes, and it doesn't matter what the situation is. And no matter how terrible, sometimes you just gotta think about other people. I consider myself to be a creature of empathy. I tend to think about these things more often than most people, and I understand why everyone's like, "Oh my God, F this guy, he killed all these people." But it's tough. But I mourn every life, no matter what they did, no matter how horrible it was, and I try to live my life on that expectation. Now, back to talking about violence. We have to figure out how to treat victims. We have to figure out how to treat perpetrators. Talk therapy is the easy route. But sometimes you need medication. Every case, every mental health case needs some sort of different treatment because mental illnesses and disabilities and everything just interacts with different people in different ways. And, I, for one, believe that everyone is a little special snowflake. We just have to figure out services for different people. And, when you talk about violence, more often than not, you're talking about mental illness. Because I've heard before, and I'm not a big fan of this, to be honest, but I've heard before that mental illness the label can be removed and replaced with an act of deviation from the norm. That sounds a lot like a crime, but it stands true in most cases where there's something going on in your brain that makes you deviate from the norm. And so we have to understand that in every case of violence, we have to treat it like a mental health case. You know, it's a problem. People have problems. I think I'm going to end this video here. It's about 5 minutes long. I was hoping to go on a little bit longer, but I think I've said what I need to say. Basically, the gist of it is you have to understand violence at its core, and you have to understand that everybody has a problem. It's not just you. It's not just a victim. It's a perpetrator too. And I know it's pretty awful, especially with what happened recently. But I feel like we as humans just need to be sympathetic, be empathetic, create this discourse where we understand everyone's problems. And we need to rise above this societal norm where the bad guy is bad guy, the good guy is the good guy, because it's not always so clear cut. And we have to create a better world for ourselves and for our children.